Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whatever time zone you're in, welcome back to Ask AHG with your host, Hannah Neely. Now, today we have a very special guest and some really even more special topics that we're going to discuss today. We have Shawn Bandy joining us. He is a community activist and a mentor. He usually mentors young men that are 21 years old and older. Say hey to the people, Shawn.
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you
Because we
guys?
don't we don't know what coast they're listening from. They may be on the East Coast or the West Coast. You know, the time zone is different. They may be listening from Dubai. We have a global audience who listens to America's Heroes Group, and we are expanding Ask AHG. We want to hear from some of the younger people that have opinions on some of these topics that are happening. And these topics are happening weekly. So today we're planning on discussing what's going on in the world and society when it comes to all of these police shootings. We recently had a police shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant, 16 years old, got shot in the chest 4 times. We know George Floyd and the verdict of Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd. So we're going to also talk about that. And Shawn, I think you'll be the perfect person to talk about, does Black lives really matter? Like, we say it all the time, but like, does Black lives really matter, or are we really looking for equality rather than actually making a change within our community? Are we just looking for equality from our counterparts? So we're going to get into all of that and more. Make sure you guys stay with us. Shawn, let's get into the first question. All right. So Shawn, we talked about it, the 16-year-old girl who got shot. Okay. Just to give a little bit more information for people who don't know, Columbus police showed body camera footage of a 16-year-old that actually got shot by a Columbus police officer just hours after the incident. It looks like the police officers came into the driveway, and the young girl, she was fighting someone else, and she pushes and swings at a person who falls to the ground. Bryant then appears to swing a knife at the girl who is on the hood of a car, and then the officer fires his weapons, it sounds like 4 times, striking Bryant, who died a short time after. Now, a lot of people were upset about this, but there were some mixed emotions about this particular police shooting. So, Shawn, if you would like to tell us more about what is your take on what happened there with Ma'Khia Bryant?
Right, and I think it's a very, very unfortunate situation, right? For any human loss of life. And I definitely think alternative measures could have been taken, right? Do you shoot a person in the chest, a 16-year-old young woman in the chest 4 times? Now, in my opinion, I'm going to say no to that, right? We could have probably done some different things. But on the other side of this coin, I think, why are we in this situation, right? Why are we in the driveway fighting with a knife? And we understand that when police show up to our communities, someone is either probably going to jail or someone could end up shot. We don't really need to see the news to know that, right? How do we get away from needing police presence in our communities, right? How do we get our communities on the same page to where we don't need it, right? Because we already understand that we're over policed, right? And a lot of times it's not due to circumstances we always control, right? But I do think that shooting a young 16-year-old girl 4 times in the chest, very unfortunate. And here's one of the biggest things that I thought was a little bit unfortunate, right? Is when you think about these folks getting arrested like Dylan Roof, Kyle Rittenhouse, you think about countless examples that we have where police will put their lives on the line to save someone that does not look like me, right? Or these teens that are being shot. When does that happen for our community, right? And how do we get away and get to the point where our lives are as valuable as those that don't look like us, right? So I think that from the officer's perspective, what do you do when you see a person lunge at someone with a knife, right? What set of instructions do you follow, right? And I think that's when we get to the point where we can say at this point, do you deploy your taser? Do you shoot this person in the arm, the leg, and we still have them around, right? And no one's lost a life, right? I think that's where we need to be, right? And I don't think we're there, and I think we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be amazing if there were alternative ways to handle these situations that did not outcome in a shooting or killing. But some people beg to differ and say, why is it that Black people keep almost putting themselves in these situations? And so I would like to know, what do you feel about some of the Black people that have gone against the grain in situations when an officer has said, put your hands down, don't touch anything, don't move. And then you'll have a Black person that will try to justify moving by saying, well, I'm recording it, but then they still end up getting shot because now the police didn't know if they were reaching for a gun. So what's your take on that? I mean, as Black people, do we need to learn to just listen to the law and like abide by what's happening in the situation to try to prevent these shootings? Or should we stand on what we believe in those moments?
Right. Now this answer is probably unpopular, right? Once you know better, you're entitled to do better, right? We know the police in a lot of these cases look for reasons, right, to exert themselves. And I'm gonna give you a really good example. In the city of Chicago, 75th Street, I stop at a stop sign. I immediately see this officer, right, turn around, put his lights on. Now, in my mind, as a Black man, right, that has everything together legally that I need to have, right, I have to know at this point that I probably need to try to comply with a lot of what this guy is saying, right? But on the other side of it, where do you stop? And we can see examples of people that followed instructions and they still lost their life, right? You think about, I think, Philando Castillo. We can't even get our ID out without being shot, right? And so it's like a starter kit that I have to use as a Black man. Get your license out before they get to the car. Have your insurance. Make sure your hands are in view of these things. It's a certain set of rules that a Black man has to follow, right? Now, what I knew in the back of my mind in this situation is I hadn't done anything wrong, right? But I got to wonder whether this guy has ill intent toward me, right? And so the story he made up was baloney, right? No validity, right? And so what I had to understand is, if you treat me like that and I have a cool head, what is it like for somebody that don't have it? Or somebody that may be less fortunate, right? Somebody may have just buried their mother, or something tragic could have happened, right? They could have had issues with seeing the amount of human life lost by the hands of police officers. You thinking about having nightmares because of what happened to Mr. Floyd, right? Mm-hmm. All of this stuff is playing out when we are being pulled over by the police, right? And so we have to have a starter kit or a tool kit to deal with them, right? But what if they don't have that? And a lot of our younger generation, they don't have that. What they see the world's naked truth about how Black people I deal with, right? Everybody understands, like, well, hey, they were Black, and we've been put in a light with the media as if we were animals, right? Even the most conscious white person or Caucasian has an inherent prejudice towards Black people. We do it too. You walk down the street, right? It's dark. You see a group of Black folks congregating together, or men. The first thing in your mind is, I don't know if they're trying to rob me. But that's how we deal with each other. So what do you think the opposite race is going to do, right?
Yeah.
These police shootings, in a lot of cases, are not being perpetuated by a Black officer. It is a white, Latino, Asian officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I think the solution to that is you get more folks in the community involved in the way the laws are written.
Okay.
Get more African American and mixed race police presence. Because if I don't know what your culture is like, how can I police you, right? How can I police you? I don't even know what that's like for some of the terminology that a Black person uses. But what we're portrayed in the media, movies, whatever it is, we are portrayed with barbaric and cannibalistic fronts, right? That's just what we,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's just what it is. And so as a community, the onus for us is to do what we've been doing. And as a 38-year-old guy, what I have to understand is this generation of youth now, they see the truth, right? And it's a lot for them to deal with. But it creates accountability with us to say, since you see the truth, how can I help you navigate through this, right? And I think sometimes the divide is between older folks and younger is they don't want to deal with each other, right? Had a
Mm-hmm.
conversation today, hey, I don't like dealing with these young folks because they do these things. Well, if you set up the circumstances to be economically depressed, right? You see on TV what a rich person's lifestyle is like, but you don't have the tools to get it. So what kind of path do you think these folks are going to go down? It shouldn't be a surprise.
Stealing and killing.
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, but we got to get away from a need, right, for the police. And one thing I'll say, when you go to other communities that spend money on alternative recreation like parks, baseball parks, whatever it is, it could be any little thing, right? They have avenues, outlets. That's not here in our community in all cases, right? So if it's there now on the side of the parents, because I also think even in this shooting, where were your parents when you were fighting in the driveway? I could probably tell you when I was coming up, we wasn't fighting in our parents' driveway, and I really didn't want them to know all, right? And so,
yeah, my mom always told me, if you fight at school, you coming home to a fight. And I never understood that, but it
man,
scared me from fighting. And I never fought in
yeah,
school or anything, and it prevented that.
yeah. Now, here's the other thing, right? Getting back to your question, you think about what if I do comply with the police, right? We've seen it where us complying has us breaking a law that they will use to then lock us up, right? So I think this generation, along with ours, has to say, we got to fight this thing the right way. And here's one of the best examples I've seen, right? You have large corporations that support a tax base in a community, right? As a corporation, when I come into a minority community, my duty is to try to enhance this community in whatever way I can, right? Whether it's I'm a sponsor of a baseball team, I'm gonna create these activities because after all, I'm making my money, right? But what I see all too often is we will support and put our dollars into things that do not have an interest for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning this, if you are gonna be running for office in my community, there are things that are table stakes that you will not be able to do if they don't support our agenda, right? Case in point of this is we had an issue with Asians being killed in Atlanta, right? That's terrible, right? We already have legislation protecting Asians packaged with COVID. Where is the conversation for Blacks, right? protected class in Jews, right? You got Asians, you got Indians, Native Americans. The problem is, where's the bill for Black folks? But once again, the Asian culture has built an economy in their community. They police themselves. They circulate the money amongst themselves, right? So they have not a need for outside police presence, right?
And you know what? I want to just chime in for a second, Shawn, because what you're saying really sounds like, the Asian community, they have a strong influence over their community and over their culture. And a lot of that comes from knowing your culture and having that ancestral history, which I think, of course, a lot of us as African Americans are missing. And but I feel like as African Americans, we have always had the military to be some sort of influence. And in the past, the military was really a large influence on a lot of young men back in the day. I don't want to give any specific years, but I know that there were certain years where men were very enthusiastic about being a part of the military, and they had maybe military family members that influenced them to be on the right track. Do you think in today's day, the military is still a point of influence to our younger generation? And if not, should it be?
When it's talked about in our younger generation among folks that look like me, it is a pit stop or a guardrail for them not to be in jail or dead, right? It's like, I don't want to be in jail and I don't want to die and I need some structure. Those are the ones that realize I need the structure. Case in point, I'm talking to a young man the other day that I mentored, and he says, "Hey, Shawn, I'm going to the military." What I knew about him was that was a good idea for him. Very intelligent, but he needs structure, right? Because he understands that a lack of structure is going to be his detriment, right? And so it's still something that young folks say they can do, right? Now, the other person that thinks about the military is the person that probably couldn't cut it in high school, grade, whatever it was, right? But again, it's a secondary point of view. This generation of young folks ain't trying to hear anything about military because they understand what things that we have perpetuated in other countries, right? Our house ain't clean. How do I go to the military and try to clean somebody else's house? And I'm in a war zone right here, right? I don't need to go overseas to do that. The war is here, right? And so the other thing is these folks have walking dictionaries in Google, YouTube. They know what's going on. Now, the other thing I'll say, the folks that say, hey, I need to buy some property. I know when I go to the military, I can go get a good career, right? That's a guarantee. The other thing is I have structure and I also have a good paying job. And when I get out of here, I got to retire, right? That's the other person. But when it comes to military as a first option, no. These folks ain't doing it.
Now, do you think that some of the military veterans or some of the active members now have some of that influence over the younger generation, or are they more so influenced by rappers and singers and what's happening in pop culture?
So I'll tell you this, as a young man.
Is that a part of the problem?
Yes and no, but this is the thing. I grew up with both my parents, right? Things that my father told me when I was younger, I didn't always follow. My mom either, right? Because I'm the kind of person that I need to experience that to believe it, right? And I don't think my experience is going to be like this. That was me, right? So with my grandfather, another military vet, right? Uncles, my family of uncles probably went to the military at one time, right? But I said they came back, right? One of them had Agent Orange, right? one of my uncle's legs is disfigured, right? Another one lost his life, right? I'm not trying to hear anything you saying. You came back and your leg looks like it looks unhuman, right? Then you have something that you never will get rid of, right? Now the trade-off, protecting this country, definitely appreciate it, right? But if I'm looking at it head on as a reasonable person, I have to ask myself, do I want to come back like that? And the answer is no, right? Even our parents' best education and influence, right, doesn't match the resounding theme here, right? We probably have more single parent homes, right, where some father's presence is not even there, right? It is to the point where one side of the fence is doing a lot of this heavy lifting, and the influence is like there, right? On the other side of that, when you listen to music, right, which has been proven to influence us, right? You know, we even our best song, we hear it and we start moving immediately to it. So this generation, a lot of their lyrics talks about the loss of life, and it's very caveat. It's like it's not even a thing, right? So how can I ask the other races to value my life? And when I can talk about in my music, I'm gonna put some money on your head, or I'm gonna step on you, right? I'm talking about killing you, right? And it's callous. It's every song. It's just there, right? Things that are in our music.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go far. You can look at even the shows like Love and Hip Hop, right? Great ratings, but what are the ratings for? We got to get on TV and fight, hit each other across the head, sleep with everybody, you know, man or wife or whatever it is. Why is that the thing that we find entertaining?
Yeah, and it's like, we'll do that. Right, we'll do that. We'll have a show where Black people are fighting, but then on the other end, we're yelling Black Lives Matter. And I even saw that like recently on the Housewives of Atlanta, Portia. And shout out to Portia, that's my girl. But you know, it's contradicting because you watch the show and they're still fighting and arguing and throwing hats and wigs at each other. But then on another episode, she's like, Black Lives Matter. And that takes me to our last question, Shawn. Does Black lives or do Black lives really matter? Or are we just searching for equal opportunity from our counterparts? And if Black lives really matter and we're not like just searching for equal opportunity, what does that look like?
Yeah. Black lives, and I'm going to say this, you know, a lot of people probably be upset. I think maybe in the next 10, 15, 20 years, they'll really matter. We're at the crust of doing something that we haven't done in a while. And it's sad that violence and things that oppress our folks is the thing that glued us together, right? We now look for Black businesses to support, right? We're looking to keep the dollars in a Black hand, right? Right? But the value of our life is not there. And really what it boils down to is if I have an issue with you, my first option ain't to take your life. And sad to say, even when you hear it on the music, the issue was taking your life. So how can I say I value your life and I'm putting money up to end your life? I'm not thinking about you might have a daughter. You got a mother. We all been to funerals. We don't like to see our people sad, but that's what you're doing to somebody else. And the fact that we don't even think that far in advance, I can't say that Black lives all matter, because everybody doesn't have that view. Now, what I think about is, even when things don't go my way with people that look like me, my first issue ain't to throw them away, right? Because that helps devalue that life, whether I like it or not, right? Sometimes we got to get out our feelings and see the big picture, right? We
And
trying
what's
to
that
put
bigger
things,
picture?
the bigger picture is a unified front, right? Meaning, at all costs, we take care of the folks that's in our community, no matter what they are, what walk of life, whatever it is, right? We have value, right? It's ways to work through a lot of things, right? But all too often, it's ending a life, right? You think about concealed carry, right? Gun makers, they making record-making profits. You know why? Everybody in fear of their life, right? And so how do you get somewhere and I don't even trust you, right? So it's creating that trust, but it's gonna take some years because we just not there. We're
And,
not
and
there, but
John, I'm so glad you said that, because I've never heard anyone put it the way that you just put it. And that was like so serene just listening to it, because I completely agree. I think that we are right there where we want Black lives to matter, and we are showing those beginning stages of Black lives mattering, which is, like you said, supporting Black businesses, standing up and protesting for things that we feel are wrong or racial against, our ethnicity. We are starting to plan trips to go back to Africa, and we're starting to start businesses over there. And so, like you said, we're kind of still in the beginning stages of Black lives mattering. But like you said, maybe in about 10, I give it 10 years, because with technology, everything's moving faster. So I won't even say like 15 to 20, just because technology just speeds up everything. I give it 10 years, and I think Black lives will truly matter to everyone. And
yeah,
you give it how many years are you saying?
I'm saying 15, 20. I don't know that all. But you know what? And I hope it happens. I would be
Yeah.
elated to see that. You know,
Let's hope for the best. Let's stay optimistic on this. And we
we got
definitely
work.
have to, yeah, we're gonna have to revisit this conversation, Shawn, at some
Definitely.
point. We'll talk about more about Black people who are traveling to Africa, who are saying, hey, and don't get me wrong, we on Ask AHG love our military, and we love our military family and our veterans. But some of them are probably even thinking like, what can I possibly do to find roots, find out more about my roots, and find out more about where I'm treated and respected fairly. And is that an option? Are you going to be treated and respected fairly if we were to, maybe start making some moves over there? So we'll get into that and much, much more. But thank you again. This is Shawn Bandy, guys. Once again, community activist mentor, joining us tonight or this morning, who knows, depending on where you are.
Right.
On Ask AHG. You guys, be sure to please follow all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and like, share, and comment. We want to hear more from you. We want to hear about what you're thinking and what you may want to hear on the next episode. So please be sure to stay social with us on social media. And until next time, I'm your host, Hannah Neely.